So the first thing I want to mention when talking about the dangers of moral relativism, as Jordan Peterson called it, is a great book that I read a few years back called Philosophy Goes to the Movies by Christopher Felsen. So, first of all, I want to say why I am mentioning this. He talks about what we keep hearing here in the West. At the same time, we are told that this person and that person have extreme points of view, therefore they should be cancelled, censored, banned, or simply not allowed a platform. Which let's put this aside for a second. But at the same time, when we hear about violent crimes against women, no human rights for women, violence against children, genocide, pedophilia, in somewhere in countries in Middle East or in Africa or in South America, the same kinds of people tell us no, we can't judge them, we can't compare, it's not their fault, it's probably justified and excused by this, by that, by poverty, by cultural difference. Let's cancel that right now. uh, First of all, crime cannot be justified through poverty because we have a lot of poor, very poor, dirt poor villages here in Europe where crime level is almost non existent. Um, Maybe it can be explained by culture, especially if it's the kind of ghetto culture that you see sometimes in the United States that glorifies crime, but it can definitely not be justified. The individual should always be held accountable, and if the culture itself is um, not conducive to um, respecting the law and upholding human rights, then the culture itself is simply bad. There's no such thing as um, the impossibility of comparing cultures. No, actually, of course you can, because no culture exists in a vacuum. First of all, more things make us similar than the things that make us different, because we're all human. That's one thing. Second, all cultures are interconnected. They do not exist in parallel universes where laws function differently just because it's a different culture. No, sir. For instance, this is an example that Christopher Felton also gives in his book. In no human culture ever in the history of humanity has there been this idea that it is okay or it is condoned to be violent to children. In every human culture ever, human children were always protected. So no, just because it's a different culture doesn't mean we can't compare, and doesn't make all cultures equal. Uh, this is exactly the reason why throughout history some cultures develop and some just go extinct because they were not strong enough to survive. And if anybody's willing to, I just want to touch on this subject because I had a conversation with a friend yesterday. If anybody's willing to condemn Nietzsche for being misogynistic or pro slavery, sure, these are integral aspects of his theory, but he was also, much more importantly than this, he was promoting meritocracy. And meritocracy is very simple to understand unless you want to say, well, who gets to decide who deserves what? Actually, nobody gets to decide. It's science, common sense, and um, evolution. Evolution decides. Um, Now, why I am saying this is because it's really paradoxical that here in the West, we can at the same time condemn somebody for having a toxic opinion that we feel is puts our safety at risk, but at the same time condone someone who doesn't only have a violent opinion but also acts upon it. and I of course mean Putin. So we're ready to condemn, to censor, to deplatform people like Andrew Tate because they spread violent ideas, as it should be. But then how can we live with ourselves by and some of us call ourselves feminists. Imagine the hypocrisy behind that. Um, while supporting someone who doesn't only spread violent ideas, but commits atrocious violent actions. How do we justify that? We're willing to punish the idea, as it should be, but then we're not willing to punish an actual violence? How does that even make sense? Violent ideas have been a part of Russian culture for hundreds of years. Violent, toxic, extreme, um, discriminatory ideas have been part and are part of Russian culture and have been allowed to exist because they're part of a different culture. But now they are also put into violent action. So, how can you, a potential feminist, condemn violent ideas and accept violent ideas and violent actions at the same time? That's 1984 level double thinking right there. The second thing I want to talk about, I don't want, I really want to keep this short, and it's already getting